You are listening to Alternating Sloth Podcast, episode 7. This is a very special episode. This week I am going to talk about my convention scene growing up. I went to a lot of different just comic book and anime conventions in general. So one in particular, actually, just one, that I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to have a very special guest on soon. So I will bring him in shortly. But first thought I would talk about when I first started going to conventions, and that was in 2004. And that was, of course, Armageddon Expo. And Armageddon Expo is the only convention that we have in the Wellington area. And I'm from the Wellington area. But as some of you listeners may have known, I've been in Invercargill for the past 3 years, but before that I was in Wellington for a long time, and my first convention was in, I believe, 2004. And I remember when I first went there, the first one I went to, they had changed venue because my brothers had went to the first one that was one of the first ones that was in Wellington, and that was at I believe the Michael Fowler Centre, which is basically for our international listeners, it's a big, it's kind of like a big concert hall for a lot of instruments and for a lot of orchestra pits and that sort of thing. And my brothers had just talked it up and told me how cool it was, and they even made like a little fake vendor venue for me and sort of gave me a bit of an experience of how cool it was. So I knew I had to go and see it at some point. And so the next year I went with my brother, and it was just such a cool experience. There are two things I remember fondly in my teens and my childhood, and that's going to these conventions and my theatre experience. And I'd definitely say that going to a convention for the first time as a little kid and seeing all these people dressed up in these interesting costumes and walking around, it was such a fun experience, and getting to see all my favorite shows that I liked, but maybe, I didn't know anybody at my school at the time that was into it, but getting to see other people who are like me who into it was really cool as well. So it was just such an interesting experience, and I got to meet, I think, the voice of Kid Goku that year. I remember her being quite a nice person, and also got to meet a lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh people, Dan Green, who some of you guys might know is the voice of Yugi. And that happened, and then I kept it going, including in 2007, where I had been going from 2004 to I think 2007 with my brother, and then by then he sort of started doing his own thing, and I went with my cousins that year, and that was also notable because that was the first year I decided to do cosplay, which is short for costume play. And I went as Rock Lee from Naruto that year. And funnily enough, there were a lot of Naruto voice actors that year. I think they had the voice of Naruto and Sasuke and stuff there. And I remember I got to meet one of the voice actors. I think his name was Yuri Lorenfall, and he was just a real nice guy. I remember we even saw him outside of the convention hall when we were having lunch, and he was just a really nice and a sweet guy who was just talked to us and just saw if we were okay and all that. He was a good guy, and so that was. And I got to meet Crispin Freeman, who I didn't know at the time, but I've heard his work a lot. And he was also judging the AMV contest that year, the anime music video stuff. And he was a great guest, and that was the first year I did cosplay. That was also the year that I think Sandy from SpongeBob or something came, I think, and I remember her being a nice lady. I remember she even said that we were like the best line or something on one of the signing sessions. That was a lot of fun. So, looking at my notes, I can see that 2009 was one of the other big years. I went all the way, looking at this these notes I've got here, I went all the way till 2014. And in 2009, that was like another year. I obviously did a different cosplay that year. I did Ichigo from Bleach. And that was also the year that Michael Winslow came, and that was pretty cool, getting to meet Michael Winslow. So, yeah. We're going to take a short ad break, and then we'll be right back. You're listening to Alternating Sloth Podcast, Episode 7. Catch you later.
Whether you're looking for raw processing power with instant panel access for live performance, or seeking rich, smooth, complex processing algorithms in the studio, Lexicon brings the best of both worlds together in the MX200 dual reverb effects processor. Designed with both rich, live reinforcement and home recording in mind, the MX200 features deep, rich reverb and effects algorithms that built the Lexicon legend. It adds increased versatility with specialized DBX dynamics. Each of the 32 stunning reverb and effects and their parameters are all instantly accessible with a single button push or knob.
Okay, right, we're back after the break, and I'm bringing in my special guest, Eric, who's been a long-time friend of mine. Eric, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Eric. I do go by another name, but I'm not exactly going to tell that to everyone here. As Connor said, I've been his longtime friend ever since college days. And it was funny enough, Connor, the one who introduced me to this whole anime, manga life of craziness, really.
Although we did meet like in the library, and you were reading a volume of Bleach, if I remember correctly.
Honestly, I was just looking for something new to read. I've been reading other things beforehand, so I figured, let's pick up this little thing and see what it is. Wow, so pretty.
Now, Eric, do you remember when you started going to conventions like Armageddon Expo?
Honestly, I do remember my first one, and funny enough, it was also the first time I decided to cosplay. And that first cosplay was a character from Bleach, which is one anime Connor's mentioned previously. But my character was, I don't remember his name off the top of my head now. Let's just go with.
I think it was one of the chiefs, if I remember.
It was one of the captains. It was it was Kyoraku. I can only remember one part of his name, but it was basically the
Shinsui.
Shinsui Kyoraku, that's the one.
Yeah.
Shinsui Kyoraku, the guy who wore a pink kimono.
Yep.
The one time I can wear a pink kimono and still feel more manly than most of the chicks there.
Yeah, I think I was Ichigo that year as well, wasn't I?
You were.
Yeah.
Yours was the easiest thing I've ever seen you do, considering that
I didn't have to dye my hair or wear a wig.
And for some reason you put a cat on your shoulder.
Oh no, that was not Ichigo. That was Kyo from Fruits Basket.
No, that's right. Oh, that's right.
And we were there with Joel and Hamish, I think, that year. And
yes, we were.
We also met a longtime friend, Sammy, that year too, as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, how did that happen? Because I remember I've met a lot of those people through you. So how did you meet them, Eric? Do you remember how you met a lot of them?
Probably the same way I've met everyone at Armageddon Expo. Dress up in cosplay, try and look as familiar to everyone as I can, then go meet up to someone who looks familiar enough in a costume I know, and just start chatting.
So you would say wearing a costume makes it easy to start a conversation?
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you can see that there's common interest involved. So if you're dressed up as a character that you know about, but not everyone else does, you can start up a conversation with another person wearing a costume of a character you know about, strike a conversation, see if they've got the same kind of interests, and then introduce your character and see if you can hook, line, and sink them into your into whatever depraved line of reading, manga reading you're in.
And what do you remember about that first convention experience?
Honestly, a lot of fun. Too much eating Dominoes and drinking V shots, which wasn't good for me and was highly recommended. You can only take one. But it was all in essence, all a lot of fun. It's great to meet with everyone who, share the same interests as you and people you can have a lot of fun with, especially with, especially interesting conversations. And it's not a whole bunch of people who are just sit at home most of the time, or just school kids. It's even professionals who just wanted to go out and have a bit of a fun time, which is something I completely enjoyed then.
And were there any guests there at that time that you wanted to see? Anyone who was interesting you got to see? Because you're more into sci-fi stuff than I am.
Well, not at that time. I was definitely getting more into the anime manga stuff. So the more Japanese media interest had got a hold of me.
I remember you were definitely like looking at the what Americans would call the dealer's room, where you go in and buy all your DVDs and manga and stuff. I remember you were definitely in there with me, like trying to look through stuff.
I'd say the only thing I bought from there was not an anime, but it was I don't know, random obscure Chinese movie.
Oh, okay.
Which is, a kung fu-ish movie, but it's got magic elements in it, so it's far away from actual kung fu as you can imagine.
There were definitely I remember though, there were definitely had a major change. Not maybe a little bit earlier than that, but because when I first went to conventions, they still had VHS tapes in the dealer's room, and it was a very limited supply, like things you could get. It was a lot of Dragon Ball Z and things like that, and there was some bootleg tapes, but
definitely. I think
no big name brands. There wasn't Mighty Ape and stuff like that we've got now.
Oh, that's definitely true. I definitely must have come before those companies came in, but after the VHS tapes all disappeared. Which is a surprising thing because you've never mentioned they had VHS tapes before. Not that I would have been interested in buying any. My old VHS player decided to disappear, destroyed. So, it actually would have still been a lot of fun to just at least look through it and see what was actually.
You did miss out. There wasn't that much. Like, there's a couple things from the 90s that you wouldn't be able to get much anymore, but there wasn't much really there.
Well,
so it was a lot more limited than, honestly, because more companies came in, like Madman and that sort of thing, so you got a lot more stuff.
Oh, definitely. The commercialism definitely exploded as the years went on. Which wasn't a bad thing.
As me and like, I would say we had a massive anime boom in, like, the late 90s, early 2000s, with Dragon Ball Z and all that sort of stuff, just like Pokemon, all of it just kicked in.
Oh, definitely. But it does, when you mention stuff like that, it does bring you back to when you actually watch that kind of stuff as your first anime experience. Not sure, like a lot of people.
What were you watching? You're obviously watching Bleach at the time, me and you, or were you just reading it? I remember I was just reading it.
I was actually just reading it at the time, but I wasn't able to find any episodes until I discovered the wonderful world of streaming free anime.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, it just it was my cocaine at the time.
Okay. And what were you watching other than Bleach? You were watching a couple of things, weren't you? You were getting introduced to a couple of new titles, I think, at the time.
Well, it wasn't exactly the more. It was the more mainstream title, so I'd say.
You're probably watching Def. Oh no, you only watched a bit. You didn't finish Def. No, I'd still get on you for that.
I got bored. Okay. Look, I liked it at the start. It was fantastic.
Someday I'm gonna make you finish that show.
Look, if I can't make myself finish watching the Naruto anime fillers.
Well, that's 100 and something episodes. Death Note is like 30 something episodes.
Yeah, but there's too much talking. But essentially at the time it was Bleach, it was Naruto. Little bit of One Piece, but not too much. Considering
so the big shonen free, basically.
Pretty much. But in essence, I think a few obscure shows I watched at the time as well were basically Fruit Basket and a few other old movies and shows as well. I think you introduced me to a few of them.
I think I did, probably. Yeah. What did you think of, like, the venue's size and just like the vibe of it?
Honestly, it was a little chaotic when I went there first time. Obviously, not that I haven't been to a convention like that before, but even going there, it was quite chaotic. Everybody's squishing against you, and you trying to make sure you keep a hold of your stuff, especially your wallet and phone. And just trying to get to a stall, trying to see what's actually left over, because we would I think, as far as I remember, I'd come in late. which was
I think
the worst.
I think
time to
even
come
one
in.
year I had my Bleach cosplay and I used my sword to make way in the line so I could get through.
I actually remember you doing that,
Yeah.
and that was horrible.
Yeah.
You monster.
Yeah.
No, actually,
But
yeah.
speaking of this, so one thing we haven't touched on, that I've briefly so there was a lot of events, obviously. You actually went there when I did the first Kamehameha contest, and Eric, of course, knows the story. So I did the Kamehameha contest, which is basically you get up on stage, you yell the Kamehameha way from Dragon Ball Z. And I did this probably, so if I'm looking at my notes, I've got 2004 here. Maybe that was 2005, 2006. Before
I
met
remember
Eric.
you going up.
It was before I met you, I think, because the photo of me when I did this contest that funnily enough got on TV was when I was like a kid, and I did this contest, and I ended up coming third place and losing my voice for 3 whole days. And I had to tell people, no, I got really mad at someone and I yelled at them, or I strained my voice. I didn't want to tell them I got, did Kamehameha contest thing. But then I got on TV for it and I couldn't hide it. But that was one of the many fun events that me and Eric, of course, went to. But Eric, what was some events that you really enjoyed? What were some highlights?
Honestly, it was definitely the cosplay competitions, the Kamehameha contest. I think, what else? Kind of hard to remember, really. Most of the time, I just try to get in line with voice actors to just talk to them.
What about the AMV contest? Did you ever go see that?
Ooh, I didn't have a chance to. Mostly because I think it was packed already.
But you did go to the anime viewing rooms a bit, eh?
Oh, just the ones on the top stands. Because TSB Bank Arena did have top stands to walk on.
Yeah. Well, they changed. They went from if I remember correctly, they had a room, and then that room was right next to the paintball like room or something like that. So they had to change it to the upstairs area that was like, you remember it was upstairs and they had these big screens like...
Yeah, which was actually infinitely better because more space. And I could just come in early, sit right in front, and it's like, okay, so my eyes will get destroyed, but this show looks amazing.
Wow. It was kind of bad because when the Kamehameha contest started, you'd be hearing half of the audio thing, and then you walk a little away from the speaker distance and you hear on the other side, I remember though, those rooms are great for 2 things. Like, one, if you were looking for stuff to buy, you didn't know what to buy, you go to like see what they're showing in the viewing rooms, and you're like, oh, they're showing this week. Okay, maybe I'll go down and get that. Like, that's how I saw Claymore did that. But they were also great when you were fucking broke and you used all your money up, and it's like, oh, I want to do something. I guess I could go to the viewing room and watch something,
Oh, that was definitely the case most of the time for me. And it was actually how you introduced me to Claymore. Because you mentioned that you were going to go see an anime viewing room, and I thought, okay, I'll come along because you did invite me. And we went there, we just kind of sat down and we watched an episode, maybe a bit. But I really was interested. That was another anime I was really interested in watching. And one I actually finished. Although don't ask me any questions because that was a long time ago.
Oh. So that was, I think that covered a little bit of... I went all the way till 2014, and you went all the way till probably 13.
I finished quite early.
Going to conventions.
Unfortunately, I can't really tell you what the exact reason was that I.
I think for both of us, it was the venue change, because the place had a massive venue change, and basically, from like this giant concert hall area to basically like a really shitty sports stadium. Didn't quite fit the vibe, eh? It was just cold.
And for anyone who's not exactly guessed already, it's Westpac Stadium. Okay, basically ring around a rosy.
Yeah.
You just keep walking around. A sports
stadium for our international listeners.
And also, it's not it's not exactly out on the field or in the benches. It's literally on the outside ring where they usually sell food, cheap food
or merchandise,
or
like sports
merchandise,
merchandise.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which basically made no difference to going in a sports arena, except there's nothing exciting going on in the center.
Although I did hear that the viewing room was actually better because they had an actual room, and it wasn't next to something super loud. They actually watch stuff and not have to worry about that sort of thing.
Viewing room in that room through the entrance?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
And
okay.
I hear a lot of people say good things about the viewing room for that year.
Yeah, I've never managed to go because I never really noticed it. I mostly went to see if there's actually anything new, if there's any decent cosplayers there. Always decent cosplayers, which is always a plus. As for the merchandise, still the same, still cheap, and stuff I can probably buy, somewhere in Southeast Asia for an 8.
So obviously we made a lot of good friends. We've had a lot of good experiences. There were a lot of cool, a lot of cool things you could get involved with. I remember there was like anime quizzes and stuff like that, and there was pillow fights, and I went and did one of them, and I got knocked out. I haven't gotten knocked out very often, but I got knocked out in one of the pillow fights.
Yeah, I didn't actually see that. But as far as I remember, you told me the story.
Yeah.
And I think I can't remember if you mentioned if they had to take you out to a hospital.
They didn't take me to the hospital. They just took me to another room. And they woke me up.
Yeah, which is thankfully one other upside for these events.
That's mainly the reason I haven't watched it. But one experience I was going to talk about with meeting voice actors and that sort of thing. So I've had a reasonably positive experience meeting some of the guests. In fact, probably the best guest I met, and you may have not went to his booth and physically met him, but I think you definitely saw his panel. That was Michael Winslow. He's the Police Academy guy. He basically could make almost any sound with his voice. I remember I asked him if he could do a gremlin sound. He did one. I asked if he knew any Beatles songs, and he did the bass line for "Come Together." That was pretty good. Oh, and he did like a whole Led Zeppelin show of his mouth, like he did a whole lot of love or something just of his mouth. So that was pretty good. Oh yeah, and he did a Hendrix set as well.
Yeah.
And I remember I was just walking around the convention, bumping into people as you do because it's freaking crowded. And I remember I bumped into him, and he said, "Oh, hey, sorry, how's your convention going? Everything going good?" And I was like, "Yeah." And yeah, I just remember he just super welcoming, super friendly guy. Shook my hand, said, "Have a great day," and went off. And then did his bloody Hendrix like on the microphone. I was like, "Wow, that's a cool guy,"
Oh, definitely. And yeah, you're right. I do remember quite a bit of that. Though I don't remember you personally meeting him.
Yeah.
Although you could have told me earlier.
Well, he came twice. He came one time before you didn't come, and then he came afterwards because he was that cool of a guest. We also had Goku, I think, twice as well. The voice of Goku, Sean Schemmel, and he was a pretty chill dude, pretty cool dude. But one interesting experience I had, and you've definitely heard this story. So I was a big Digimon fan as a kid. I liked Pokemon too, but Digimon was the shit back in the day for me.
I'll say. Have you it was during one of the cosplay competitions I was lining up for. And one time they decided to have a bit of an ad break. And basically during this ad break they basically previewed a lot of either remakes or new seasons or new episodes of each individual one. And I remember everyone losing their shit when the Digimon theme started playing. I had one of the cosplayers I met, this girl was like right beside me. Okay. She let out the most high-pitched scream I've ever heard as soon as it started playing. I was like, okay, I can't enjoy this with you screaming like this.
Yeah.
But you're right,
But one of the voice actors, actually they had all three of the voice actors that they had that year were from Digimon and a bunch of other things, including from Naruto. And I remember I lined up in this line, and I was super excited to meet this lady who voiced one of the characters. Because I didn't like, I don't think I cared that much, but the character was just like, fuck yeah, I get to meet someone from Digimon.
Was it the original series or the?
It was the original series, like the one that we.
Was it one of the Digimon?
The one
or
we
one of the
grew
kids?
up on. It was one of the Digimon. I'm not gonna say who because I'm not gonna mention this person's name. But we were I was waiting in line to go meet this person, and this person in front of me was wearing a Star Trek outfit, like I think it was like a Captain Kirk sort of thing, like a yellow jumper thing. And he went in front of me, and this lady, she must have been the biggest Trekkie on the planet because she met him and she's like, "Oh my god, I'm such a big talk for Star Trek for hours with this guy," and this guy's just like, "Oh yeah, cool. Oh yeah, I like Star Trek as well." And she's like, "Oh yeah, did you know I was a voice of a background character, a Next Gen or something?" She mentioned like she was like some background voice, and she talked for hours and hours about this. And then she's like, "Oh, are you a big fan of one of my shows?" And he's like, "Nah, I just wanted to talk to someone." And I was like, "What?" Yeah. So that guy, like, basically, went through all of that, didn't get any. He just went like he was just bloody fucking wanted to talk to someone, and then went through the rest of the line. I came up next. I was like, I basically was like, "Oh my god, I'm a huge fan of Digimon," said all that stuff. And she basically is like, "Okay, all right, name?" I was like, Connor. And she's like, "Okay." And then she just didn't even write my name, just wrote her name down, gave me like the piece of paper that had her character on it, and was like, "All right, next."
Yeah, that's a sad part. That might have been
so sometimes the guests, aren't that nice. Sometimes they're just too fucking tired. Or sometimes I got to meet Johnny Young Bosch one year, and the security can be assholes too sometimes, because you'll be going through and they'll be like, "Now don't take too long. I know they're your heroes. I know you really like them, but don't take too long. We don't, move the fucking long. Sometimes you get asshole people like that. But what made up for this experience of meeting this not so great lady was I got to meet Michael McConaughey, who I didn't know much of his work at the time, but most people will know him. I think he's the Lynch King in World of Warcraft, and he's in a bunch of anime and other things.
Yep, I remember being the guy.
Yeah, he's in heaps of stuff. I know him mostly from being Anji and Rurouni Kenshin. And he's a great actor, and I got to meet him, and I remember he was just super nice and warm, had the biggest smile on his face. Oh, definitely. And I remember he even, I was babbling on to him and to the next guest about how I had this book I was writing about vampires, and I saw that he voiced Vampire in a D, so I mentioned that I was into vampire stuff. And he wrote on his thing for me. I remember he wrote this, and I've still got it somewhere. It says, "Awesome meeting you. Vampires make great blood brothers, Connor." Yeah. So he took a lot of time writing that, and I was like, this guy's a cool dude.
So you might want to check if that line is actually from Vampire Hunter D and not from, say, the World of Warcraft universe, because the universe.
Well,
still
he's
has
not
vampires.
A vampire in World of Warcraft.
But he could have worked with someone who was voicing a vampire and thought the line sounded pretty awesome.
But I got to meet him, and then right afterwards, and I didn't know who he was at the time either, because I just looked at the name, and I found out afterwards that I got to meet Steve Bloom, and I didn't know who he was. And then afterwards, someone's like, "That's Orochimaru and such and such." I'm like, "Oh my god, I should have known that." Like, I briefly I told him the same sort of thing. I told him I was working on a book and stuff, and he's like, "Oh yeah, cool," and he was super happy and positive and encouraging. So, "Oh, that's great to hear." And afterwards, he said it was awesome meeting me, and he had written on the thing, "Great meeting you, Connor. Have a great day, Steve Bloom," and even wrote my name and stuff as well. Great meeting you, Connor. It's so cool. So sometimes when you meet a she guest, you get to meet two guests that are good. Sometimes,
Yeah, that's always the best thing. Although with meeting the voice of the Lich King is always a big surprise, because a warm inviting voice doesn't seem to fit with the voice of such an evil character such as that. So you would usually be kind of thrown out of the loop of this.
Did you have any negative experiences meeting any voice actors or just actors in general when you're at the convention?
Honestly, no. It's mostly with your Digimon voice actor experience.
So
It's like,
I'm the only one
okay,
that
yeah,
had a bad experience.
yeah, because mine are usually more business-like than anything.
Yeah.
I think the only time I met I think as far as I remember, the only voice actor I've met that was really, chirpy and happy must have been from one of the. Oof, now the name escapes me. I can't remember what series it was, but the voice actor was definitely the best and really chirpy and really happy and a vapor at the time. But hey, that's not exactly a big problem.
So how would you say like these going to these conventions and meeting all these new people, how would you say it like affected your life?
Honestly, made it far better. It let me meet a lot of new people. It let me explore a whole media outlet that I possibly never knew or would have touched upon. It kind of made me look into the far deep corners of darkest corners of humanity's minds.
Yeah. Getting to
Knowing
see new dark cool things. Like I remember where we were buying anime and right next to it is of course all the dirty shit, like not that far from it.
you don't see a lot of that anymore, but I do remember.
Well, they got complaints. I saw recently, like they even had an article in our newspaper here, stuff like about how there was too much of that stuff on display.
Oh my god! If they think they can complain about that, they can go to Japan. Okay, they've got some of this dirty stuff right next to the decent stuff.
But I guess technically Armageddon isn't exactly just an anime convention. It's meant to be kind of a family event too. So I guess
it definitely is a family event. So a lot of families do come around there.
Although after dark, it can. Although, did you drink ever at the convention? I don't think I ever drank at the convention.
I've never drank at the convention. I've known a lot of people to drink at the convention.
Yeah.
I remember one of our quote unquote friends. Joe. We'll call him just Joe at the moment. Bit of a strange guy, but he did once come in for who knows whatever reason, come quite wasted. So unfortunately, that wasn't exactly the best experience to have. So thanks for letting me come on, Connor. This has been episode 7 of Alternating Sloth Podcast.
Catch you later.